Thank you to everyone for joining us for today's webinar. I'd like to also thank the funders of Cochrane Canada, without whom these webinars, our training, systematic reviews, and capacity building could not happen. Thank you to CIHR for their support. I'd also like to thank PAHO for kindly providing the Blackboard software for our webinars, and a special thank you to Luis Gabriel Cuervo, who converts our webinars to YouTube videos. The recorded webinars are generally available online from 2 to 8 weeks following the webinar. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's webinar on the steps of the Cochrane Review. We'll be hearing from John MacDonald. John MacDonald is the managing editor of the Cochrane Inflammatory Bowel Disease and Functional Bowel Disorders Review Group, based at the Western University in London, Ontario, Canada, a position he has held for the past 12 years. John has a master's degree in sociology from Western University and over 24 years of medical research experience. He wrote his first systematic review on methods for quitting smoking in 1994 while working for the Ontario Tobacco Research Unit. John has published over 60 peer-reviewed articles, including 9 Cochrane Reviews and 24 substantive updates of Cochrane Reviews. John, please go ahead.
Thank you, Catherine. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm John MacDonald. That's me right here. And I'm going to be presenting today on the steps of a Cochrane Review, an overview. What makes Cochrane Reviews different from other systematic reviews? Who and what is involved in the process? Today we'll introduce you to the steps of a Cochrane Review and give you some practical tips for getting a review underway. Topics that will be covered in today's webinar include what is a systematic review, why systematic reviews are useful, key features of systematic reviews, steps for getting started on a Cochrane Review, including deciding on a topic, identifying a team of authors, identifying the appropriate Cochrane Review group, and registering your title. We'll also cover some resources that you'll need for completing your Cochrane Review. I heard that there are about 300 individuals signed up for today's webinar. So let's start with a quick question. Where are you joining us from today? Your chat permission has been enabled, so you can enter your location in the chat room. Let's take a few moments and see where everyone's from. Lots of Canada and US so far. Oh, one Belgium and Dublin, Ireland. Copenhagen. South Africa, Cape Town. Wow. Denmark. Egypt. Switzerland. Barcelona. Oh, and another one from Cork, Ireland. Well, that's really neat. I guess we're from all over the place. Let's continue here. So what is a systematic review? A systematic review is a review of a clearly formulated question that uses systematic and explicit methods to identify, select, and critically appraise relevant research, and to collect and analyze data from the studies that are included in the review. Why systematic reviews? There are 3 main reasons why systematic reviews are useful. First, they're efficient, bringing together the whole body of research, answering a specific question, and saving readers the time and expertise required to locate, appraise, and interpret the results. Secondly, unlike a single study, a systematic review can help us explore the differences between studies, identifying those factors that influence the effective intervention. Thirdly, systematic reviews are reliable, presenting an unbiased, comprehensive picture of the available evidence that can then be used to support decisions in healthcare, in policy, or to identify areas where future research may be needed. Traditional narrative reviews do not have this advantage. It's often not clear how the evidence was selected for inclusion in the reviews. Perhaps only studies conducted in the last 5 years, or only studies published in English, or only studies in large U.S. teaching hospitals, or perhaps only studies that agree with the author's opinion. There are key features that should go into any systematic review, whether they're a Cochrane review or not. First, a review should have clearly stated objectives, specifying the question to be answered and determining what evidence will be sought. The objectives should determine clear eligibility criteria so that all the relevant evidence is identified and clear objective decisions can be made about which studies are included or excluded from the review. Throughout the review, all the methods used should be explicit and transparent so that in theory, someone could follow along, repeat what you've done, and come to the same conclusions, or at least see clearly where they might have made a different decision. Once the eligibility and methods are planned, there is a systematic search of the literature to find all the relevant evidence. The included studies are then carefully assessed, identifying those that might be at risk of bias or have inaccurate results. Finally, the results of all those included studies are systematically reported, and a synthesis of their findings is presented. So how do we conduct a Cochrane review? Throughout this workshop, we will be referring to the Cochrane Handbook for Systematic Reviews or Interventions, or the Handbook. This handbook is an essential guide for review authors, outlining in detail all the methods that we will be discussing during the workshop, as well as more advanced topics. I strongly recommend that everyone makes use of the handbook. Whenever you have a question about your review, try checking the handbook first. Throughout the workshop, we'll give references to the appropriate chapters of the handbook where you can look for further information. The handbook is available free of charge, either via the internet or from the help menu of the Redman software that we use to write Cochrane reviews. You can access the Redman version without an internet connection from the help menu. If you choose, it's also possible to purchase a hard copy of the handbook for around $50 US or 50 euros from either Wiley Blackwell online, Amazon.com, or your local bookseller. Note that electronic versions of the handbook are often more up-to-date than the hard copy. Lists of what's new in the electronic versions, as well as updates and corrections not yet implemented in the handbook, are also available on the Cochrane website. For a Cochrane review, we translate these principles into steps. We start by formulating the question and by registering the proposed review title with the relevant Cochrane review group so we can keep track of which reviews are in progress. Then we plan our eligibility criteria and methods in advance, and then these are published as a protocol in the Cochrane library. Only then do we proceed with the review, running a systematic search to identify all the included studies, collecting information from each study, assessing each study for bias, and analyzing and interpreting the results. The review is then published. Cochrane reviews add another step to this process. Every 2 years, we aim to update our reviews to keep up with newly published research. Some reviews are updated more frequently if the literature is fast-moving and many new studies are published. Some reviews are updated less frequently if there are few new studies and the findings of the review are clear. We'll be working through each step in this process during this workshop and looking at things in more detail. The first step in getting started on a Cochrane review is deciding on your topic. Cochrane reviews deal with a number of different questions. The most common Cochrane reviews are intervention efficacy or effectiveness reviews. The PHASIS treatment provides positive results in a controlled experimental research trial, such as a randomized controlled trial. Effective treatment provides positive results in a usual or routine care condition that may or may not be controlled for research purposes. In my review group, we usually look at medical interventions for the treatment of inflammatory bowel disease. An example of an intervention efficacy review for my group would be TNF-alpha antagonists for induction of remission in Crohn's disease. An example of an effectiveness review would be the use of TNF-alpha antagonists in patients being treated in general practice clinics. I'm sorry, those would be Crohn's patients. Other Cochrane questions include diagnostic test accuracy reviews, methodology reviews, and prognosis reviews. Diagnostic test accuracy reviews assess the accuracy of tests used to diagnose disease. An example would be second trimester serum tests for Down syndrome screening. A methodology review is a systematic review of methodology studies. An example would be when and how to update systematic reviews. Prognosis reviews can provide information on the likelihood of a particular outcome or disease recurrence. These can identify target groups for treatment or suggest intervention strategies to modify factors associated with poor outcomes. The Cochrane Prognosis Methods Group is currently developing methods for the conducting of Cochrane Prognosis Reviews. And in the future, the Cochrane collaboration will be allowing the registration of prognosis reviews, perhaps in the next year or so. The Cochrane collaboration does not provide support for epidemiological questions that deal with incidence, prevalence, or association. For today's presentation, we are going to focus on the Cochrane intervention reviews. That is, those reviews that address efficacy or effectiveness, which usually follow the format intervention for a health problem. For example, antibiotics for acute bronchitis, or community-wide interventions for increasing physical activity. We'll get into this a little more later. Has it been done? While deciding on your topic, it would be a good idea to check the Cochrane Library to see if it's been done. So let's take a moment and visit the Cochrane Library. Just bear with me here while I pull it up. Now, the Cochrane Library is just loaded here. Just give me a moment. Well, wrong one. Cochrane Collaboration. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why I have both. Just give me one moment and I'll fix this up. Sorry folks, I had that loaded before and the Cochrane Library webpage must have expired on me. Let's say for a moment that you were interested in doing a review on methotrexate for the treatment of Crohn's disease. So a good place to check would be the Cochrane Library. And I'm running a search here. And as you can see, there's been a number of reviews that have been done on methotrexate for the treatment of Crohn's. So in that case, I'm going to have to come up with another topic. Bear with me for a moment here, and I'm going to take us back to our slides. So once you've decided upon a topic, the next step is to identify a team of authors. So let's take a moment and do some brainstorming. What kind of factors should I consider when choosing co-authors? Let's enter some ideas in the chat room. Okay, we have statistics, methodological expertise, statistician, library science, publications. I'm going to enter one more here. How about Cochrane experience? Those are all things we're going to wish to consider while forming up a team of authors. The review team. All Cochrane reviews must be written by more than one person. This helps to share the workload, but it also has other important advantages. There are some points in the review process where work should be double-checked, such as final decisions about including studies in the review, data collection and entry, and decisions about the risk of bias of your included studies. Also, multiple authors can provide different perspectives in different areas of expertise, which can improve the quality of your review. You may have authors from different disciplines or different geographical settings. First-time review authors are encouraged to work with others who are experienced, and having someone on the team with methods expertise is always an advantage. Your Cochrane Review group may have minimum criteria for the skills of members of your review team. It's important to consider the users of your review from the beginning of this process. This can include different professional perspectives, but the consumer perspective is particularly important. And consumers here are people that use these healthcare interventions for whatever condition they have. Consumers may have vital insight into the scope of your review, the important outcomes to be measured, accessibility of the intervention, and variability in the circumstances and perspectives of affected individuals. Consumers are usually included in the peer review stage of protocols and reviews, but can also be involved directly throughout the process. The perspectives of people from different settings in which the health issue or intervention occurs should also be considered. For example, reviews of malaria should be informed by the perspective of people from affected low and middle income countries. Interventions that are not specific to resource-poor settings should also consider the different access, delivery, and outcome challenges in those areas. Your review group may be able to recommend consumers and colleagues active in the field who may be able to advise you on your review. There are options available as to how to engage these perspectives in the review. You may wish to involve people as authors or consult them for advice, which is acknowledged appropriately in the published review. You may wish to set up a formal advisory group for your review, including a range of stakeholders to be regularly consulted for discussion and advice during the review process, including scoping the review, identifying important background materials, interpreting the findings, and disseminating the findings to relevant users. The next step is to identify the appropriate Cochrane Review group that supports reviews on the topic you identified. There are currently 53 Cochrane Review groups, each responsible for supporting and publishing reviews in different areas of health. We have a heart group, a breast cancer group, a hypertension group, an infectious disease group, and about 40 some odd more groups. The Cochrane Review groups work internationally and across disciplines. If you live in Argentina and your review is on diabetes, you will work with the Metabolic and Endocrine Disorders group in Germany. If your review is on arthritis, you will work with the Musculoskeletal group, whether you're a GP, rheumatologist, podiatrist, or an occupational therapist. As authors, your Cochrane Review group is always your first point of contact, and they will support you throughout the review process. The next step is to make contact with the appropriate Cochrane Review group. Once you've put together your team, your first step is to register your title with the relevant review group. This prevents duplication so that no one else is working on the same topic, and also ensures that your topic is appropriate and well-defined. Cochrane Review groups may choose not to register your proposed topic. For example, some groups prioritize topics to be registered based on global health priorities and the burden of disease. Alternatively, your topic may overlap with an existing review, or it may wish to consider a question that is not aligned with the scope of the Cochrane collaboration. For example, questions of etiology or prevalence. The Cochrane Review group may wish to negotiate the topic with you. For example, they may feel the scope is too broad to be manageable, or alternatively, they may wish you to expand the scope of your review to cover one or more related interventions for which a review is needed. Once your review is registered, your review group will provide ongoing support and assistance. As authors, they are your first point of contact for help with your review. Importantly, your review group has experts in literature searching and statistical methods who can help with your review. The Cochrane Review Group may also provide templates and tools for your review. Finally, the review group is responsible for editing and publishing your review, including managing the peer review process. Like any journal, your Cochrane Review Group reserves the right not to publish a protocol or review if it doesn't meet the Cochrane Collaboration's editorial standards. The next step is to register your title by submitting a title registration form, which is also known as a review proposal form, to the appropriate Cochrane Review Group. Let's have a quick poll. Title registration forms. At what stage are you? Please select A if you are a registered Cochrane author working on your protocol or review. Select B if you are working on your title registration form now. Select C if you plan to submit a title registration form within the next year. And D if you're just learning about title registration forms now. I'll turn things over to Catherine for a moment to conduct the poll.
Thanks, John, and I'll just give it a few more seconds to let people submit their answers. It looks like most people have answered D.
Okay, well we have a lot of stuff to go over then, don't we? Thank you, everybody. At the title registration stage, you're going to be asked to complete a title registration form, which is also known as a review proposal form. This outlines your plans for the systematic review. Cochrane review groups need as much detail as possible to help clarify the scope of your proposed review and decide whether it should be registered. As well as scoping out your topic in detail, you will be asked to provide other details, such as members of your review team, including areas of expertise and systematic review experience. When we get title registration forms sent to our group, we also ask everybody, all author team members, to provide us with an up-to-date CV so we can look at their qualifications. The time frames for completion are important. The Cochrane Review Group will monitor your progress and will reserve the right to assign the topic to a different team of authors if the review is not progressing. The timeline for a review is usually up to 2 years, but this depends on the time and resources available and the complexity of the topic. All Cochrane authors agree to publish their review first in the Cochrane Library. You may wish to co-publish your review in other peer-reviewed journals or books, and many journals are enthusiastic about co-publishing Cochrane reviews, often in an abbreviated form. And many review groups also have co-publication agreements with journals that are aligned with their specialty. The collaboration is happy for co-publication to happen with one essential condition. Cochrane reviews must remain free for dissemination in any and all media, without restriction from any of them. Cochrane authors grant the collaboration a worldwide license to disseminate Cochrane reviews and cannot sign exclusive copyright over to any other journal or publisher. See Chapter 2 of the handbook and contact your Cochrane Review Group for more information if you would like to make arrangements for co-publications. And sometimes reviews that have been published in other journals are also converted and published as Cochrane reviews. This often requires a lot of work and modification, such that the review can essentially be treated as a different publication. If the Cochrane version is essentially the same as a previous published version, then permission needs to be sought from the previous publishers. Declaration of interest. The title registration form will also ask you and all your co-authors to complete a declaration of interest, and you will be asked to do so again before the publication of your protocol and a completed review. We take this very seriously, and Cochrane authors are asked to be as transparent as possible about any interests, commercial or in kind, that may be perceived as a potential conflict of interest, whether or not you think this conflict is important. Importantly, direct commercial sponsorship of any review is prohibited. So, resources for your review. The most important resource needed for your review is time. Consider mapping out a time chart of tasks, with target dates, and get a clear picture from each of your co-authors about the amount of time that they have available to work on your review. A review may take up to 1 to 2 years to complete, but this will vary, of course, depending on the amount of time available to dedicate to the review. You will need some expert advice, particularly around literature searching and statistical analysis. Your CRG, Cochrane Review Group, can assist with these, but if you have access to local experts, this can be very valuable. Your local library will be important in providing access to electronic literature databases for searching and for obtaining copies of journal articles once your search has been run. If you don't have access to a good library, you should talk to your Cochrane Review Group. You'll also need some office supplies and technology, computers and internet access for writing and submitting your review, and resources that you need to ensure that the members of your team are communicating regularly, such as by teleconference if you're not all in the same place, and some basics like printing. Funding may be available to support priority systematic reviews from the various organizations that fund health research, from service providers, policy agencies, and guideline developers. Most Cochrane authors, however, provide their time voluntarily. Review Manager is the Cochrane software that you must use to write your review. RevMan is available to download free of charge from our website, right down here, and is specifically designed to help you with your review, providing templates to help you write the text and performing the statistical analysis for your review. RevMan will also help you save your drafts to our central database called Archie. And it also helps you submit your review for editorial approval. The Archie database is then used to publish the Cochrane Library. We'll talk about RevMan and Archie in more detail in a separate session, but a user guide and self-paced tutorial are available from the Help menu in RevMan, and more documentation is available on the website. So there are some key resources that you're going to need to complete your Cochrane review. One of them, of course, is the Cochrane Library, the Cochrane Handbook, the Canadian Cochrane Centre, and the Cochrane Collaboration. So what's the take-home message? Cochrane Reviews aim to provide reliable information to support healthcare decisions. Your first point of contact is the relevant Cochrane Review Group, or CRG. You start by putting together a team and thinking about your resources. The following references were cited during today's webinar, particularly the Cochrane Handbook for Systematic Interventions of Interventions. I said that wrong. Particularly the Cochrane Handbook for Systematic Reviews of Interventions, or the Handbook as we commonly refer to it. The slides used for this webinar were adapted from slides by Miranda Cumston, the Australasian Cochrane Centre, and the Canadian Cochrane Centre. Please join us next week for the webinar. Let's start at the very beginning. Getting the question right for your Cochrane review. A strong, clear question gives your Cochrane review the foundation it needs. It informs your search strategy, narrows your focus, and provides the framework for your team's work. Join us to learn what sort of questions are answered in Cochrane reviews. We'll cover the key components of a good research question, and we'll work through some sample questions. You're invited to share your research topic as an example. And for more information, you can check out the website right here for the Canadian Cochrane Centre. Now, Catherine's going to speak to you right now for a moment, and then we'll move on to questions.
All right, let's all send a round of applause to John. Thank you so much for speaking today. We do have some time for questions, and while we're waiting for them to come through, we would appreciate if you could fill out the evaluation form. I'm just sending the link through the chat room now. And while we're waiting for questions, I'd also just like to mention that the Canadian Cochrane Centre offers author training workshops, which are 3-day face-to-face workshops that go in depth about how to write and conduct a Cochrane review. So if you'd like more information on that, you can visit our website at ccc.cochrane.org. So John, we have one question. How can we get access to the Cochrane Handbook of Diagnostic Test Accuracy Reviews?
Well, there are two ways to do that. If you just bear with me for a moment here, I'm going to pull up, just hang on a second. I'm just going to pull up RevMan. Okay, so we're in RevMan here, and one of the easier ways to get the Diagnostic Test Accuracy Handbook is to go to the Help menu, scan down the Handbook, and you have the Diagnostic Test Accuracy Reviews Handbook, and you also can get the Diagnostic Test Accuracy Reviews website. And I hope that answers your question. If you just hang on a moment, I need to figure out how I get back to...
Just while John's going back to the slides and so forth, just to let everybody know that I put the link to the Diagnostic Test Accuracy Reviews is now in the chat room. So you can find the link to Diagnostic Test Accuracy Reviews in the chat room.
Thank you, Erin. And if anyone cares to email me, I can also send stuff like that to you. If we just go to the, since we're now in the question session, if you note right here, here's my email. And I'm happy to answer questions over the next few days if any questions occur to you. I'm ready to take more.
So we have another question. Could you please go through the different categories for potential questions again? For example, efficacy versus effectiveness.
Okay, just give me a moment here. So we're going through types of questions for Cochrane Reviews. So efficacy questions are generally involved with randomized controlled trials. And that's basically what we do a lot of. Most of our reviews are intervention reviews that look at the efficacy of drugs that are used to treat inflammatory bowel disease. For example, we have like a review on cyclosporin for the treatment of ulcerative colitis patients with treatment-resistant disease. And effectiveness reviews we haven't really come across too often. They're really deal with stuff that's in a more real-world situation. So these are like reviews of drugs that are used in like a clinic, say a clinic that's run by a family physician who may be treating Crohn's patients or ulcerative colitis patients. Or, yeah, I think, does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you. Another question, how do we access Cochrane Review articles as clinicians who are no longer affiliated with the university library?
That's a good question, and really I think that depends on your location. Some countries have licenses where if you have an IP address in that country, an example would be India, you could log on to the Cochrane Library, which, just hang on a moment here. It's I'm just going to paste the Cochrane Library web page into the Blackboard here, into the chat room. And you can get it that way. Otherwise, you may have to pay for a subscription if you don't have a license or access through a university. Or you could also if you're in a situation where you don't have the resources to get a subscription, you could contact the Cochrane Review Group. I often get DVDs sent to me of the recent issues of the Cochrane Library, and as a goodwill gesture, I often mail these to people that need them.
Great, thank you.
I hope that answers your question.
Can one researcher join a pre-existing team, and how?
Well, I would say that yes, that actually happens a lot. I can give you a couple examples. I mean, sometimes we have reviews that aren't progressing very well, and if a researcher has contacted our review group and indicates the type of interests that they have, we may introduce that individual to an author team and see if he or she can't help, facilitate the completion of a review. We also have people that come in. Often we have summer medical students come in, and we teach them about systematic reviews and have them help us update reviews. So that's another way that a new individual can join an author team. So the best way to do that is just to find a Cochrane Review group that does research in an area that interests you and contact them. Provide them with your CV and that outlines your experience, and take it from there. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And another question here. It was mentioned that systematic reviews were not suitable for association studies. However, many systematic reviews are available assessing associations using the relative risk and hazards ratio. How can you judge the validity of such methodology?
Oh, well, I don't pretend to judge the validity of that. Just the Cochrane collaboration doesn't have the capacity, at least at this time, to deal with those kind of reviews. They use different statistical methods and such, and the software just hasn't been designed to handle that kind of meta-analysis. I hope that answers your question to a satisfactory way.
Okay. Is there a forum to have a discussion with your relevant Cochrane Review group, or that helps figure out which group fits your question best?
I'm not aware of any formal forums. I mean, the best thing you can do is to contact either your Cochrane Review group that you think matches the topic you're interested in, or you could also contact one of the Cochrane centers, such as the Canadian Cochrane Center, and they could help match you up with the relevant review group.
And all of the review groups are listed on Cochrane.org if you want to go look at them.
Yes, they are. In fact, I will paste that in the window in just a moment here.
And must one have attended a Cochrane training before they can register a title?
That is probably a good idea to attend Cochrane training, though not everyone has. I mean, we have had interested clinicians that want to learn about systematic reviews, and we have registered their title because they're working with other experienced authors, and then at that point they may wish to attend a training course just to get a little more experience with the RevMan software and stuff like that. But generally, I would think it's a good idea to attend a training workshop. But often, these training workshops want you to have a registered title before you actually join them. So I guess it works both ways. Oh, and thank you, Aaron. I see you put in the Cochrane contacts there.
Okay, and one more person has asked, how can they become a part of a Cochrane Review group?
Well, the best way I know to become a member of the Cochrane Review group is to contact them. If you go to any of the Cochrane Review group websites, they usually have a link about joining us or volunteering with the group, and you can click on the link and fill out the form, or email them directly. We get many such requests all the time, and we do our best to fit people in where we can.
I see that someone has entered in where these workshops held, and I'd just like to let them know that the Canadian Cochrane Center holds them all over Canada. We've had them in Vancouver, we've had them in Halifax, so if you want to go to our website, Erin's just posted the link. You can see what upcoming workshops we have.
Just to let folks know that we have some really exciting plans for workshops coming up this fall. For those of you in Canada, we are planning sessions to be held in Toronto. There may be a session at the University of Western Ontario. There's definitely a session at McMaster. For those of you speaking French, there will be one at Laval en français, and there will be one planned for the University of British Columbia. So lots going on. Please stay tuned by checking out that link that I've put for our workshops.
Awesome, thanks Erin. And here's another question from a participant. Another group has already made a protocol for the subject we are going to work on. Their protocol will be outdated in 2 months. So my question is whether it would be automatically deregistered if they do not publish before then.
To be honest, I would say no. Generally, we try to be very supportive for author teams, and if it looks like they're making an honest effort to complete their protocol, we're not going to pull the rug out from underneath them. Now, if over a period of time, if it appears that they're just not progressing, then we have an honest talk with them and ask them if they intend to complete the protocol, and if they don't, at that stage we will consider handing the protocol title over to another team of authors. Though sometimes, again, we might even have an individual, we've had an individual or a couple of authors approach us, and we ended up combining them with a current author team, and then that helped finish the protocol.
Excellent. And are there any more questions for John? Here's one. What is considered a reasonable amount of time to complete a Cochrane review that is registered?
Well, a reasonable amount of time would be 1 to 2 years. But of course, we've had groups of authors take a little bit longer than that. It really depends on the type of question that's being asked and the complexity of the review. I mean, we've had reviews that include 2 or 3 studies that are, you can complete a review like that in a fairly short period of time. We've had others that have included 50 studies, and they're very complex, and they may take 2 or 3 years to complete.
And what is the rule of thumb on converting existing reviews to Cochrane Reviews? Is this discouraged?
Actually, that's something we would encourage. There's no standard rule of thumb that I'm aware of, other than let's say you take a review team that published a review in a journal in 2006 or something, and they decided, it'd be really neat to turn this into a Cochrane review. They would contact us, and we would get them, formatting it for the Cochrane style. And then, of course, the review would involve an up-to-date literature search, and would also involve the use of the Cochrane Risk of Bias tool, and the use of the grade criteria and a summary of findings table. And in the end, this would turn out a product that is much different than the review that they published in the other journal. And I believe it's something to be encouraged, and we have done so in the past.
All right, thanks, John. And can one author join more than one review group?
Yes, we have authors working for us who work for multiple review groups. For an author who's a new author, I probably wouldn't encourage this, because a Cochrane review is a pretty big commitment of time and effort. And for someone that's starting out on their first review, it's probably a wise idea to work with just one group. But we have experienced authors who work with a number of groups, and they are writing all kinds of Cochrane reviews.
And is it possible to learn how to become an author without attending a formal face-to-face workshop?
I believe that is possible. In fact, there are several training webinars that are probably offered to the Canadian Cochrane Centre that would help a person get some experience with RevMan and summary of findings tables and grade and things like that, all the things you need to know to write and publish a Cochrane review. And there's also courses that on systematic reviews that are offered at universities, and we have allowed people to join review teams where they haven't taken a Cochrane course, but they've taken a formal course on systematic reviews offered at a university, and that's going to provide them with the kind of experience they need to do this kind of review.
One additional resource that's available to people who become Cochrane authors is that on the training working group's website, training.cochrane.org, you can find online learning modules that walk you through many of the steps of a review. And these involve, pre and post quizzes, some fun interactive activities, resources and links to the handbook, information, questionnaires, and so on and so forth. So you may want to check that out if you become a Cochrane author.
Thanks, Erin. I had forgotten about the training group. I don't often wear the training hat.
All right, excellent. So I just want to let everyone know that we will send around these slides, and we'll also send the links that have been mentioned today. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and we really appreciate your time and participation. Thanks to John MacDonald for speaking, and we hope you'll join us next Thursday for our final session on getting the question right for your Cochrane Review. Have a great day, and bye for now.